What's up, guys? Welcome to Nutmegged, the podcast where a Yank and a Brit talk about the beautiful game from across the pond. I am Andrew, representing the Stars and Stripes. We also have Faisal holding down the crown for the UK, but in Dubai. How is life, my dude?
All good, man. I'm very excited for this week's podcast. There's been lots of interesting things going on, man. Ready to get stuck in.
Yes, a lot of stuff is happening now that seasons are going strong across the globe. So we're going to do a little bit of a new format. Going forward, we're going to start every episode with the Nutmegged of the week because that's just fun. It's exciting. It's what the people want to know. So to kick us off, I would love you to do the Nutmegged. Can you please hit us with yours?
Yeah, of course. Going to start it off with back actually in the Champions League, actually. So we're going to begin us off with CBS. Everyone loves the CBS coverage. It's got the Micah Richards in. It's got your Jamie Carragher. Obviously, man like Thierry Henry is in that space as well. Of course, Kate Abdo. So it's the classic. Everyone loves it. And it's a bit of a light nutmeg. And I think it's like a bit of a lack of professionality here is what I'm thinking potentially in this space. So if you guys know, AC Milan played Liverpool yesterday as well in the Champions League, the new Champions League format, which we'll get into later on in this episode. But AC Milan lost 3-1 to Liverpool. Solid Liverpool performance. I mean, Liverpool are flying and they're in a great form at the moment, so it's guaranteed for them to be solid performance in this one. Christian Pulisic is being interviewed after the game, speaking to Kate Abdo, and he gets asked a question actually about weirdly enough, about the USA men's team and how, how it's like how does he feel about it? What's his new manager? And Pulisic is talking about it's a new manager. I'm really excited. And he's talking a bit more about the impact the new manager will have. And then it pans to Thierry Henry to ask a question. And Thierry Henry just goes, no. He just literally pauses, just goes, no. And then Cabra just carries on speaking. She's like, okay, cool. Well, obviously appreciate your time, Christian, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm reading in the comments. I'm trying to figure out what was going on there. What's going on? So two things came out from that. Number one was the fact that apparently he was also interviewed for the job, didn't get the job. So maybe there's a bit of saltiness there potentially in that space. They're also asking about the US men's team. Maybe that's a link. The second thing potentially is, why are they asking about the USA men's team in a Champions League game, right? It's the end of he's lost against the Champions League and against Liverpool. So maybe he's thinking, that's not what I'm discussing here. I'm not going to ask you about anything of that level. So that's all. But I mean, good old Henry, he's going to be more professional in that respect. So for me, it's a slight nutmeg. He's got to do better there. It's a beloved show. You could have maybe firmed it a bit, perhaps, asked the question to bring it back into Champions League. Who knows? But yeah, that's my easing us into the week, nutmeg of the week.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he made it so awkward. I'm going to guess it has something to do with his saltiness of not getting the U.S. men's national team job. From the rumors that I have heard is that he wanted that job and he was in contention for it. But it seems like all of the people that did not get selected for that job are rather salty. So Henry is one of them, but then we also have Jesse Marsch, who was in contention when Berhalter was kind of coming back, but then they were still looking for other people, but they brought Berhalter back anyway. So Marsch has been going hardcore on the campaign trail saying, yo, it was a terrible experience interviewing. I'm so stoked now to be the manager for Canada. It's such a better place. I'm so happy that I'm here. So it seems like there's a lot of shade being thrown at the U.S. soccer side of things for maybe not having the best interview process, or even maybe just so because they didn't get selected. But yeah, if you're going to be a broadcaster in general, at least don't make it awkward for the audience, your interviewers, your co-hosts. Yeah, my guy. Don't love that. Let's talk about something also very nutmeggy, but we're going to take it up a level. It was quite a wild situation that happened. So we're actually going to drop all the way down to the non-league side of things. So going all the way from the Champions League down quite a few steps in at least the English pyramid. So there was a non-league game going on for the Ballon Dragons. So you can look them up. Non-league side, not many people are going to know who they are. Just playing some scrappy football toward the bottom of the pyramid over actually in the Welsh non-league area. So you can look them up, but they were losing 3-1 in one of their recent games. And it was about the 57th minute. They said, all right, we're going to make a change. They're going to bring on one of their subs. It was Jordan Evans. So Jordan Evans, pretty solid player. He's played above non-league before. So with that happening, once he gets on, he ends up assisting 2 and scoring 1. So not only does he bring them back to 3-3 with setting up 2 goals, he scores the winner to make it 4-3. But as the game has a few minutes left, police pull up on the scene. And out of nowhere, they come onto the pitch during the game and arrest Johnny Evans, put him in handcuffs, and take him off the pitch. They actually take him into the precinct or wherever they take people that they have handcuffed. They brought him into the police station and interviewed him and essentially said, hey, you were in suspicion of theft for something or another, and end up seeing that he probably wasn't the guy, so they let him go. But yeah, he was handcuffed, taken out of a match while it was still going on, and not even found guilty. So very non-league type of experience happening over there in the Welsh side.
That is very, very classic non-league. I've never heard of the police coming in just taking him mid-game, like near the end of the game. That is actually crazy.
And just to even be like such a good player as well, and to like get the 2 assists and the goal to like make it such a fun, exciting game, and then leaving the game in handcuffs.
I'm just imagining everyone's feeling as the police is rocking up to the stadium, like can just like instead of like a red card, just pulling out this player from the team, and it just scored 2, and he must be buzzing like, and he's
yeah, wild scenes over in non-league. With that, now let's bounce back up to the Champions League, because you talked about it. Champions League action is happening. Our boy Christian Pulisic, while he is getting awkward interview engagements, at least he's scoring goals. So he did score the lone goal against Liverpool. So that being the case, the Champions League is in a new format. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a little bit confusing because now it's more in the shape of a league and has some different elements plugged into it. There's more teams now. There are going to be more games. I know you're more of the expert on this, so can you help for my American soccer brain? Can you give me the deets?
Yeah, let's break it down. So for the first time, the Champions League has actually become an actual league. So there's now a league system. So you may know before there was different groups and used like groups of 4, I think it was. And then the top 2 went through, and the third would then get dropped down to the Europa League. That is now different. So there's now a new key. A couple of the key changes in this space is, number 1, there's now 36 teams. So that's a fair amount. Like, you've got a good shot at it now. It does make it more entertaining. It makes it, there's more opportunities to watch football, more Champions League football, right? So the first thing is now they've got a league phase we spoke about earlier. So now each team is in play 8 matches between 8 different opponents. So it's going to be 4 at home and 4 away. Keeping it really simple, which is really good to see. So you'll then, people entertainment-wise can be able to watch different players play at different grounds. It's more different teams. You get to see more quality football across the span of the league, which is quite interesting. This replaces the previous format where teams played 6 matches against 3 opponents. So you get 1 more extra opponent, which is really good, and gives us more kind of quality of football in that space. So for example, you obviously got the league. Then it makes it more interesting because it's a league format. That means there's obviously people going down, there's people being knocked out of the league, there's people going up. So now for the qualification for the knockouts, essentially the top 8 teams from the league will be automatically qualified for the round of 16. So that's fairly simple enough. And that tend to follow the same format as perhaps the group stages where the top teams of the 8 groups just go through. So if you're in the top 8 of that league, you go through to the round of 16. Now, teams finishing in positions 9 to 24 are then entered into a 2-legged playoff to secure to secure the remaining spots in the knockout stage. So that's interesting. You've got between the 9 and the 24. Those are those 2 teams, that group essentially of teams. Then get to play it out, do the playoffs. I think the playoffs are most exciting. You get there's more opportunity for like knockout football there. It's more like exciting. People need to win. The 8 teams, they're comfortable, they're ready through, but you want to build into that to basically bulk out the other 2, essentially the other 8. So there's that, and then those finishing 25. So anything from 25 to 36 essentially, then they'll get eliminated. those finishing 25 or lower will be eliminated without dropping to the Europa League. So actually, there's no dropping to the Europa League anymore by the looks of it, which is, I don't know. I felt like there's opportunity, for example, for a Champions League team to do potentially well in the European Europa League, but the Champions League, the European dream ends with the Champions League now. So that is going to make it a little more be or play, or you've got to be locked in. So every match will now significantly impact standings, ensure a competitive balance. So it makes it a bit better for us to watch from that perspective, and also increases the number of matches in the tournament, which is quite a big increase. So originally the tournament, previously Champions League format, had 125 matches, right? Which didn't feel like 125 matches, if I'm honest with you, right? Across the board. Now it's 189 matches of Champions League football we have here. So, I mean, that's insane for arguably the best. People argue the best tournament in world football, the Champions League, makes it more interesting. And the final, of course, is going to be at the Allianz Arena on the May the 31st, 2025. So that's the current breakdown. What are your thoughts? Are you happy about this? Does it make it more interesting? Who you got? What are you thinking?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's good for the general soccer fan because you're going to get more soccer overall. The format also creates different buckets for teams. So like when you're in the league portion of this, the league phase or whatever they're going to be calling it, then you are playing within your little league bucket. So then if you're playing in your little bucket, then that means you're going to be playing a lot of teams more regularly, while then you bounce out of your bucket for a couple of games. So that means you're going to be playing higher level competition more regularly. So you're going to see the Bayern Munichs go up against Manchester United. You're going to see them going up against City, Liverpool against AC Milan. So you're going to see a lot of higher quality teams matching up with each other more regularly now and earlier on in the Champions League than you would in the old format, which I think is cool. And I'm always here for more of those bigger, exciting matchups. And the more I can watch Christian Pulisic play against Liverpool and other bigger teams like that scoring goals, I'm happy because that's going to make him a better player and hopefully the U.S. men's national team better, which we'll talk about them in a little bit as well. But I do like that piece. So that's another benefit for myself and other general soccer fans of seeing more higher quality opponents facing other higher quality opponents. Now, on the flip side of things, with there being more games, that's already been something we've talked about. It's something that Jurgen Klopp has talked about in the past. Guardiola, a lot of the other managers saying there are already too many games in such a confined, packed schedule. So if you're in the Champions League, you have domestic cups as well, plus the league that you're already playing. So the more games that get pushed and shoved into a schedule, the more tired players are going to get, more injuries are going to happen, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these teams, and Chelsea maybe taking it a little bit too far, but getting more players in so that they can have more depth, so that they can utilize that depth in all of these different levels of competition. While it is going to be good to see more games, like that's exciting just to me as a general soccer fan, it is kind of sucky for the players, but ultimately all of it comes down to money. Because the federations and all the people that govern soccer around the world, they just want more money, and more games equal a lot more money. So ultimately, I think that's the root of this change. We'll have to see how it goes. I think it'll probably be a wash. I think general soccer fans will enjoy it, but I'm guessing that players are going to be more and more frustrated, especially as we see it play out.
I think I totally agree. I think it definitely makes for more exciting games. I think that's what perhaps... Do you remember that whole thing about the Super League? Do you remember all that kerfuffle, shall we say, about the Super League? I feel like they've kind of taken on board, I suppose, the feedback, incorporated a bit of that into it as well. Actually, speaking of the Super League, there's actually a really funny advert. You should check it out. It's on YouTube. It's actually an official one done by the Champions League, who's UEFA, that's it. So UEFA have put out quite a funny video, and it's almost like talking and discussing in layman's terms what the new format is, and it kind of runs off. It's very complicated. It's Zlatan's, and the breakdown of it is Zlatan's kind of like He's in there. It's very well filmed. He's there talking about like this. What's this? He's got like, I want to speak to the president. I can't deal. What is this format? What is this new format? Like, what is it? And then it just kind of goes on like a fun element of like explaining it in the simple terms what it is. And then like it's, and near the end, you could. I think it's one of the presidents goes, you could even call it a super, and then it just cuts. Just at the end. It's really, really fun. It's worth checking out. I think it's definitely, I find it really refreshing. I'm mostly sad that Man United are in that because I'd love to see those sorts of games. I think it's Champions League is amazing. One thing I flagged though, Tuesday night football, Champions League. I don't know. It feels like, naturally there's going to be more games. There's going to be more days to do it. And I do like the idea of potentially the fact that it kind of like runs hand on hand with the Premier League. As a football fan now, we get football. Right, we've got. If you think about it, from like a football perspective, we've got Carabao Cup. Which is essentially the League Cup from a Premier League perspective. You've got Champions League football. You got the Premier League, obviously. You've also got the FA Cup. Do you know what I mean? We've got football we can watch, and then scattered in between there, you've got the Nations League, for example, from a European perspective. There's like other football going on, like English football, for example, and European football that people can watch, and world football. So it's an exciting season, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in if I can stay up long enough to watch the games there. I think most of them are about 11 o'clock at night here in Dubai. So it's a struggle, but we make it work for the best games.
Yeah, and you talked about there's so many competitions and so many games. So I do feel bad for the players, which I am okay if there's more football, which I wish it wasn't about the money. I wish it was more so just about trying to spread the sport more evenly across the world. Conversation for another day. However, from a default fan perspective, I would love to have more high quality soccer being played. With that being the case, if the model and structure changes a little bit to maybe what Chelsea is trying to do, maybe they're just playing 4D chess and they actually know what's coming down the pipeline, because then we can get to a point where a team just has almost two full squads so that they can actually play these types of games and not need to risk as much injury. You can rest more players more regularly, and you'll have essentially a second squad that you can send out for other cup competitions, and you can change those players out more regularly. We're not there yet because you can only have 25 players registered to play in the Premier League, and there's only a window, so like an off-season window that closes after the first week or two of the season, or it's close to when the transfer window ends. Then it opens back up, I think, during the transfer window again, the winter transfer window, for a few days. Then it'll close again. So we're only at 25. You can only register 25 players. There are certain rules and things you can do with injuries and swap some players in and out like that, but it's pretty strict. So maybe we're going to get to a point where that number goes up so that it's more aligned with cup competitions and all of the expanding games. We'll have to see. However, did you see the most disappointing part of this new league format? It is that the Champions League anthem has changed. They have gotten rid of, they've gotten rid of like the old Champions one, and it's where like they said, that one, and they say like champions in all these different languages and stuff, which is super sweet. But they have changed it because now the new one better fits with their brand identity, is what they're saying. So yeah, listeners, go out, have a listen, see what you think. Bring us all your thoughts in the DMs.
God. Before we move on, just really quick one. We need a shout out to Vincent Kompany and what he's doing at Bayern Munich and specifically in Champions League. If you know the current results at the moment, the previous result, 9-2, by the way, was their game against Dynamo Zagreb. I mean, a winnable game, but he has really got them flowing. I think the weekend before it was 6-1. So they surely are a shout for the Champions League in this, right? Do you agree?
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know what he's been doing. You've seen early on, I think, preseason clips of him like yelling at players, and maybe wasn't the best look. I think maybe we even talked about that. But I guess, hey, he knows the secret sauce and to get something working. So with those results that he's been having, I guess are the good things. I probably should be taking notes because I got to get my guys functioning like that. Now, I would like to take us away from the Champions League, actually away from Europe in general, all the way across the pond to my residence here in the United States, because we finally have a new manager in charge of the U.S. men's national team. It's been a slog because U.S. soccer has been so disorganized for years. We saw that happening with Greg Berhalter, like being the manager, and then he wasn't, but then he was kind of still there, and they were interviewing to try to replace him, but then they said, I guess all these guys weren't good enough, so we're bringing Greg Berhalter back. But then he was officially relieved of his duties thankfully, after quite a disappointing campaign from the men, it wasn't the Gold Cup, but not making it through in the CONCACAF, not Nations League. I get confused with all these different cups and things like that. It
Nations
was
League.
Nations League. Okay. So thankfully, they did not do well, which is sad to say as a U.S. men's national team fan. But we all knew if that wasn't going to happen, if it wasn't going to go well, which they didn't even get out of the freaking group stage. We had a whole episode that I discussed that. But they did not make it out, and we all anticipated, yeah, that's probably the end of the road for Mr. Berhalter. And I do enjoy Berhalter as a coach. I think he's probably a better club coach than he is a national team coach. It seems like he just needs more time to work with players to get his system flowing, because he was really good with the Columbus Crew, and he ended up getting them to the playoffs quite often. So I don't mind his coaching style. I just think he'll be served better elsewhere. I also don't love how U.S. Soccer created the structure that they did in terms of like kind of having him there, but then not having him, but then bringing him back anyway. Just saying all of this to set the stage, because officially was it Tuesday? The U.S. men's national team played a friendly, which I actually attended in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to that match with our Terra State men's soccer team. It was a great time. Sad result, though. U.S. were playing New Zealand, and they lost on a crazy type of goal where they tried to clear the ball, but then they cleared it off a defender, and then it went over top of our goalkeeper and then into the net. Just ridiculous. That was like in the 88th minute. But at the beginning of that game, there was an announcement made on the mega screen that was there, and it was Poch saying that he has accepted the job. Pochettino is joining the U.S. men's national team. It was really cool to be there, to experience that, to see it, because that was the last game where our interim manager was in charge. Now Poch is officially the U.S. men's national team coach, and he's been doing some great interviews. So he's been talking to some of the like U.S. media outlet people and having conversations about what it means to him. It's so exciting to have a manager of this caliber come in. And I think the issue with Greg Berhalter was that he just didn't have the system, the awareness, and the name to be able to influence these players in the way that he needed to, because he wasn't really the biggest name in the locker room. But now bringing in Pochettino, he is hands above every single player on the U.S. men's national team roster, because he's achieved more. He's been at a higher level for so much more. The only one that is even in the maybe same conversation is Pulisic, having his kind of identity as Captain America, but Poch is by far and away the right manager for this job. I would love to have Klopp, but I'm not hating, because I still think Poch is a similar version. Poch is a similar version of Klopp. So having him in, being able to guide the locker room, guide these players, have them a bit more scrappy, showing effort, because based on how he managed at Tottenham, how he did at PSG, and even the other Premier League team, I think he was at Southampton, like seeing the way that he inspires his teams to play is so exciting, because he has coached at the highest level, like with Tottenham, with PSG, but then he's also managed teams like Southampton where they weren't the best, but they're like trying to fight for spots at the top middle portion of the table, which is where the U.S. men's national team are right now relative to other national teams. So Poch is officially in. I'm super excited. I am looking forward to seeing what things get changed, what things will look like with him at the helm of our men's national team. I really cannot wait. I'm so very excited. But for you abroad, looking in from the outside, what does this move look like?
Yeah, I think from the way I kind of view it as well, maybe pass for myself personally, I think it's about time. I think the USA men's team, I think they're due a solid manager. I feel there's a lot of potential in that team. I feel there's a lot of potential for them on the world scene as well. It doesn't feel right not having the USA in the mix for the semis, for example, the quarters. It just doesn't really click. And it might be the whole thing potentially the European, maybe from the European footballer potentially in this area being like, oh, it's USA. They should stick to the NFL or stick to baseball, whatever it is. So I feel like it almost gives the USA, the men's team, like a a bit of a kick, a bit more gravitas in terms of where they are on the world stage. It gives them more of an authority with Poch as the manager. I think it's a great signing. I don't think there's probably, I mean, aside from Klopp potentially, but I think Klopp's just relaxing for the moment. So I don't think he was even considering it. So it's not even like he rejected it. I think he wasn't even in the picture. I think he's a nice to have, but I think it's amazing to see Poch at that level. My only kind of question mark potentially is he's done what he's done at club level has been fantastic, right? He was managing likes, I think, of Sadio Mane. He managed as well Dusan Tadic in that really nice free flowing Southampton team. Spurs again, you could argue that his time at Spurs, he got them running well and got them into the finals, was it, of the Champions League? So, he's no slouch. He's a solid tactical strategic manager. And then at PSG, it felt like that was a bit of felt a bit watered down. That success was. It was a bit like with a PSG team. I think he ended up winning the Ligue 1, but who wouldn't win the Ligue 1? It's a bit difficult now, but back in the day, I think he would have walked it. So my only kind of question mark is, can he replicate what he's done at club level to national level? Because we know that's difficult. That's not easy, right? Going from a club level to national level. But I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it kind of work out. So fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this appointment because you kind of talked about his success was kind of random and varied. One of the common denominators from all the places that he went was the frustration about the management not bringing in the players that he wanted for his system. That was always a problem, especially at Tottenham, even at PSG. Like PSG were just bringing in players that didn't necessarily fit the system that Poch wanted to play. So the cool part about him now being an international manager is that that's not even part of the equation. Like, the players that are in the player pool, and you can bring in, as the manager, whoever you want. You can call up any player at any point in time, and Poch is in charge of that. So he really has free reign to create the structure, the system that he wants to build. So I think that not being a distraction for his managerial portion and his responsibilities, but then also having a pool of players that he knows what it looks like and the system that he wants to build and pull from, I think is pretty cool. The other element of this that gets me excited is the pull that he will have with dual nationals. So we saw that with Florian Balogun. So Florian Balogun ended up choosing to not represent England and decided to come play for the US, which ultimately I think was probably a better decision for him career-wise because he's more likely to break into the US squad than he would be with England. And he was one of the maybe decent players in this past 2-game window when the US men's national team just did not look up for it. So I am excited for the prospect of him bringing in some exciting dual nationals because there are quite a few of them out there that have potential, but then also more likelihood to select the other nation, not the U.S. But now with Poch in charge, the idea to play more regular football with a decent national team, but an awesome coach that is going to take them places, I'm excited about that. Some of the interviews that Poch has been doing also are exciting because he had a chat with Men in Blazers, and he had said, so it is about winning the World Cup. Like, a manager is coming in not to just create the right type of system or to get the team playing well. Like, obviously my goal is to win the World Cup. I wouldn't be coming and taking this job if my objective was not to try to get the US to compete for a World Cup, which no manager has really talked about before being a US men's national team manager, which is just disappointing because your objective, the reason you're being hired, is to try to win a World Cup. It's not to just try to get to the quarters or the semis, which unfortunately is a problem, has been of late, not being able to get even out of the group stage. So I think having those aspirations and having a manager that has a track record to be able to do that is just exciting. So I'm very much so looking forward to having Poch at the helm of the U.S. men's national team. Any other thoughts for you on my USA boys?
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm excited. And one thing I just realized, well, as you were speaking about the sort of younger players as well, potentially that the USA squad has, and how he can build a squad. He's done that with lots of young players in the Spurs team, for example. He's bought out key players in that space as well. So I feel like he will be able to mold those players, and he'll be given time to be able to do that. There's some great competitions. And when it comes to knockout football and competitive football like that, it almost allows younger players to be a bit more on the ball, give them more free-flowing opportunities. And Poch is that sort of manager. So I think from management perspective, that's exciting as well. So yeah, I think it's about time. We'll see what happens with a Poch USA versus an England team with a who knows manager. That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited. A lot of good stuff happening for the U.S. men's national team. And like you had said, it's about freaking time. It's been a stressful time being a USA supporter. Thankfully, it has been better for the women's side, too, because a shout out to Emma Hayes, also like one of the top coaches in the women's side. No idea how the USA was able to swing both of these managers to be in charge of our international programs. It's pretty sweet. We did see there was outside investment brought in for U.S. soccer to be able to pay Poch what he needs to. So that's kind of cool to see it working together because our system is broken and weird and discombobulated here in the United States when it comes to soccer. Again, that's a conversation for another day, but I'm just glad that Poch was able to join us here in the US of A. Now, let's turn our attention to a not as exciting topic because there is a trial that is currently happening actively. We are in the middle of the week. It is Wednesday right now, September 18th. And that is the middle of the week for the Man City trial that is going down. So they have been discussing things for 2.5 days now at this point. And many people are saying this is the trial of the century because it's going to do two things. It's going to set precedents for what happens when a team does this going forward, when they have a lot of financial breaches and things that they blatantly lied about, hid information, agreed to not work on certain things, to not provide certain information. So those are just some of the specifics that Man City has been suggested in doing in their 115 counts. So all this is relative to financial fair play. Now, this trial will last for 10 days. So it's going to go on for 10 days. Again, we're entering day 3 as we're talking and recording right now. It was scheduled at a top secret location so that there could be less influence. However, that secret location did get leaked. Surprise. That's funny. So now photographers and news media outlets have been around photographing, taking pictures of lawyers and people that have been going in and having those types of conversations. But on top of all of this stuff that is going down, again, being titled as maybe the trial of the century, because the other piece to take away will be what happens to City if they are found guilty, which from a personal perspective, I don't know how they're not guilty of some of this, because ultimately from an outsider's perspective, it looks like that is the case. So we shall see what the verdict is, but it costs £5,000 a day to utilize this space and the resolution center that is helping to navigate this trial. So all of this to say Guardiola and Holland were asked this question, which is just frustrating because it's distracting. They're saying what's going to happen. And then both of them came out and said, hey, we're innocent until proven guilty. Guardiola then continued to say, hey, City will take whatever ruling is passed down and we'll just manage it. And people are suggesting that ruling could be expulsion from the Premier League. That could be a temporary thing. It could be longer term. They could just be demoted automatically down into the championship, which would be wild to see. So a lot of things hanging in the balance on these 115 counts. We'll have to see what comes out of the trial. I know everyone will be paying attention to it just like us, but what are your thoughts?
I honestly, excuse the pun, but I do think it is a lost case. I just feel like the amount of money that Manchester City have and the support they would have from, let's say, international areas, right? The Middle East in particular. I just don't see them. I don't see anything happening. I see them doing a very good job of hiding away any so-called evidence. I'm hearing things, for example, that the players were assured, I think, back in the day, Laporte and Guardiola as well both said, look, we were assured by the rest of the hierarchy that nothing's going wrong, and we've done nothing wrong. And I think they signed like like irrefutable. There's no absolute evidence of this at all. And part of me feels like if they've got the money, they've got the best team on the case. And I genuinely don't see anything happening. Maybe something minor happening, very small, like, okay, maybe we'll dock a couple of points. I can never in a million years ever see it happening that they lose all their Premier League titles or anything of that level. I just never see that happening. I just don't think they're going to give them that much of a heavy link into that, mainly because of the money there is. But also, like, I've read, like, the UK potentially could ruin its kind of like partnership it has with the Middle East and the money that comes into play. When you think about politics and money, it moves beyond football, in my opinion. And then it becomes this weird kind of like confused place of whoever pays the highest or whoever's in a better place economically potentially can get away with this. So I see them perhaps getting a slight slap on the wrist. I think the verdict's meant to come out sometime next year. And I think it's going to be an obvious one. It's going to be, yeah, perhaps we didn't see anything, but there's probably one or two bits that were question markable, so we can give it a slap on the wrist, maybe a bit of a point deduction, but that's about it. I can't see anything else happening at the end of this, and I think this case, in my heart, it should be a cut and dry. You broke the rules. Here's your punishment, but it's really not going to be like that, and we're going to go on and on. There's going to be some sort of like weird caveats and all this sort of stuff. So this case, I mean, I have no hope at all. If I'm honest, you can see I'm very negative about this because I just don't see anything happening. It's Man City. They have money upon money. How are they not going to somehow get their way through this? I mean, can you?
What's wild is 20 years ago, if we would have been suggesting this as a thing, everyone would have laughed. And see how far City has come to this point. Yeah, I think you're right. Unfortunately, I think the standard should be upheld, and we've seen it upheld with other teams like Everton getting docked points.
Exactly.
However, I'm with you. I don't think anything will happen because just like with the new Champions League format, everything is about money. And you mentioned it, Man City has a ton of money. And honestly, that's why they're in this situation in the trial in which they are right now, because of money. So somehow I think money will play a part. They're not going to get demoted out of the Premier League because ultimately that would hurt the Premier League. So that would end up losing the Premier League money, which the Premier League would not want. That would have some issues, I'm sure, for FIFA in general. I'm sure they would end up losing money because then if City aren't in the Champions League and all of those types of things, then that loses money for all of the FIFA general people. And then City, of course, would be losing a ton of money as well. And they, of course, as a club, don't want to be losing money. Their owners don't want that to happen either. Plus, if City get demoted, I don't know what financial ramifications that will have for the club, of course, but then also for the pyramid. So I would love to see like what the financial ramifications would be for all the involved parties. I just don't think it's going to happen because in the end, it will end up hurting too many powerful organizations financially, and money really is what controls everything, as we all know, especially in the sport of soccer. So I really don't think much will happen. Maybe a slap on the wrist, as you had mentioned, maybe just a small points deduction. Maybe they get the Carabao Cup taken away or some type of title that they had won during this period, which I think was like from 2009 to 2018. So that's like the time frame in question of when they were doing all of this sketchy financial stuff, allegedly. But yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of keep it covered as well. So as we hear from the trial and we get more stuff, we'll break it down for all of you guys as well. But yeah, City, just disappointing.
Yeah, just the whole thought of this whole case, I just feel like a lot of it is almost also paying lip service to everyone to kind of say, we are doing something about it. Look, you know, we're trying our best, and then you're giving out points deduction immediately for the likes of Everton and who else? Everton and was the other
Forest?
club? Yeah,
Forest?
Exactly. Yeah, not good. But speaking of, I mean, let's be real, one of the best clubs at the moment in the UK in British football at the moment in particular, or English football, let's say English football. They obviously have incredible players, and incredible players often get rewarded with nominations to the best of the best. Well, we'll get into whether it is the best of the best for the Ballon d'Or nominations. So we obviously have the men's Ballon d'Or nominations for 2024. On October the 28th, we're going to figure out the actual live result of the nomination, well, actually of the winner of the Ballon d'Or. It's probably the most prestigious one that we obviously know as a football fan. Listening to this, you know the levels, you know the quality of footballers that have won in the past. So just breaking down a couple of the players that are in the nominees for the Ballon d'Or. Right, I'm just going to run down a couple of the players. Right, so obviously we've got the obvious players. Obviously, I think Jude Bellingham makes a lot of sense in this space. Halanoglu, I'm going to go with Turkish midfielder.
Halanoglu, yeah, he's good.
There we go. Carvajal, we know Ruben Dias. We've got Dovbyk as well from Ukraine. We also have Foden, Garnacho, the one and only Erling Haaland. We know that as well. We have Matt Hummels, Harry Kane, Toni Kroos, Ademola Lookman as well. So we know his heroics of the for breaking that Bayer Leverkusen last of the Europa League, which is crazy. Lautaro Emiliano Martinez and also Lautaro Martinez, Kylian Mbappe, Odegaard, Dani Olmo is in that space. Cole Palmer, we love to see it. Declan Rice, Rodri, Antonio Rudiger, great centre back of the month for Real Madrid. We have, of course, Bukayo Saka. We have Saliba, Valverde, Vinicius Jr. We have Vitinha, Nico Williams. We have Florian Wirtz. We know how good Florian Wirtz has been for Bayer Leverkusen. We have Granit Xhaka and, of course, Lamine Yamal. So a couple of the regulars, shall we say, are in there. Players that perhaps have had a solid season are in there. Some noticeable players which are in that space are the two GOATs, shall we say, of football. Or there's only one GOAT, and his compatriot, of course, is Lionel Messi, and of course Cristiano Ronaldo. For the first time, they have not been nominated since they've been since the past past 10-15 years actually not been nominated. So not necessarily a shock. They're in different places in their footballing careers, but still arguably the best. But they are up against some great players in this space. Initial thoughts. Who do you... Let's break this question down to you. Number one, anybody in that list, for example, that jumps out, it was like, I'm not sure. Wow, they're in there. Secondly, who is your player that you think that they're getting it, that's in the bag for them?
I am a little confused by the grouping of players that they select for this. I get that there are different positions and different position players. They're not going to be in the same type of conversations. So I get that. So each position is different. So it's probably different levels of quality. So like you're thinking of a striker, like a Mbappe and Haaland going up against like a Xhaka.
Great Xhaka.
I mean, that's just maybe not the right comparison for sure. So then when it comes to your first question, the actual players that maybe should not be in there, Xhaka did play really well. And he was a key piece in that Leverkusen team. However, is he on the Ballon d'Or level of where it should be? Maybe not. Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal, great seasons, but not Ballon d'Or level seasons. I think the reason that these types of players are in there is because of the narrative. Because right now they're the flavor of the season just because they've done a lot of spicy stuff in the Euros and they're looking good. They're exciting. A lot of people are talking about them because they're so young. That is my problem with the Ballon d'Or, is that it's just media folk just throwing in names and suggesting who is the best. So there's not any type of structure or actual systematic way of doing this. So I have been angry about this probably since 2020, since Lewandowski did not get selected as the Ballon d'Or when he clearly should have. Also, last time when Messi was selected and Erling Haaland was not selected, I think that was fake news because, sure, Messi got it because of the storyline, but I think that Haaland had a much better cumulative season overall. So I just think the Ballon d'Or is funny and stupid, and it's just a good talking point for media people. But I would say that there are those like bottom tier players that maybe played a good role for their club, or they're just in the news a lot more, that kind of get tucked into this as well. But there are clearly those players that are in the conversation for best player in the world. Who do you think maybe should not be included in this list?
Yeah, I think they've all got their own right. I think for sure. I think you've got it bang on. There's definitely players. Perhaps I've carried different teams, different players. I just feel like, Martin Odegaard, is he really one of the best players in the world? I don't know. It feels like sometimes they've almost got to like fill it potentially with players that have had a good season, right? Because there's only so many players that could win it. So there's probably like a top 5 of players that are probably contenders, and the rest have to be like, well done, like thanks for coming. Like a tap on the back almost, like a pat on the back. For example, like I think Danny Carvajal is a great player, but is he really one of the best player? Like he's had a very good season, right? Like,
even Danny Elmo.
Exactly, right? Cole Palmer, again, not one of the world's best players, but an incredible player for his club and for England as well. So, for me, the players that I think I've got in with a shout, I think that, I think Florian Wirtz, amazing for country and for club. Like if you watch Florian Wirtz play as a football fanatic, watching a player like Florian Wirtz play, you just know he's at a different level. Is he win it? No, but I think I've put him in my top 5, shall we say? Maybe at number 5, right? I think then Jude Bellingham is in that space. I think Jude Bellingham's, for me, probably put him at number 2. I think he's an incredible player, and what he's done for Real Madrid. Last season, crazy. I'd probably put Kylian Mbappe in there as well. So maybe put Kylian Mbappe in that kind of 4th place. 3rd, it's a tough one. I slyly think potentially, I think Harry Kane's in with a shout. Not as in like to win it. Have you seen what he's been doing at Bayern Munich?
Yeah,
he's
he's over at Bayern Munich.
He has a very bad Euros.
What do you do with England?
Nah, sunk there. I think maybe that's a bias. But then I would potentially also Lamine Yamal, not necessarily winning it, but with a shout for being like a very good player, like a potential world beater. But I would put
Odegaard above Lamine Yamal on your list. I would. Tell me who you think a better midfielder is right now in the world.
They play different positions.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I still think he, like player wise, he would be above him for sure. But now, I heard your Odegaard thing, I'm like, you little slanderous boy. I think he's... who's better in midfield for his position than Odegaard right now in the
Bruno
world?
Bruno Fernandes.
Get out of my face! That is sick. I'm even a Manchester United fan, and I'm going to punch myself in the face. I really do think that Odegaard is one of the best true midfielders in the world right now.
Not like like a Phil Foden potentially on his day. He's definitely up there.
But Phil Foden plays more of like an attacking mid/wing player at times. When I think Odegaard is much more of like a central midfielder / like cam.
Fair, maybe.
I think he's one of the best midfielders right now in the world.
Wow.
And you're throwing this like 16, 17-year-old boy in my face with that? Me and Odegaard are going to hunt you down.
Yeah. I think as an England fan, I've watched Lamine Yamal like tear us apart. And I'm seeing some of these Barcelona games. I'm seeing him, like his performance has just been incredible. Even for Barcelona, it's been incredible. Yes, he is very young, but there's, I think, generator talent in there. And I just feel like I don't think anyone's, probably in my opinion, in his position. Like, if you could argue maybe Saka and him are in that, they're not comparable because they're probably more kind of wingers. They're more probably out and out wingers, right? You'd argue.
For sure.
And they're probably comparable in terms of their positioning. They play different roles, but would you put, it's difficult to compare Saka to Yamal because Yamal's only been born on this planet for 17 years.
So if I were to actually compare those two from a Ballon d'Or perspective, which is how they should do this, you're looking at them in a fairly similar position category. But based on the previous calendar year, I would say Saka has had a better, more consistent year. I would say if Lamine Yamal continues to play the way that he's played over the next calendar year, 100%, like he's in the conversation.
Maybe, yeah.
But that's how it should be looked at, but it's not. So I'm just yelling at nothing for no reason. I may as well just talk to this brick wall behind me.
And for me, there's only one winner here, and it should be the winner. It's Erling Haaland. I don't think there's any.
Last year too.
There's no two ways about it. I mean, if you're a Premier League fan, you can know what he's done and what he's doing for Man City and what sort of player he is, and everything goes through him. The only downside and potential question mark, if you're looking at it from like a Ballon d'Or's angle, And you know how the Ballon d'Or like to work, right? They like to look at it from a country perspective, a domestic Champions League, the whole shebang. And he's not carrying Norway anywhere. He's not bringing Norway to a point where like they're challenging, shall we say? That, maybe that's probably where he is only the question mark. It's difficult because Norway is such a small place and it's difficult to put into play. But yeah, Erling Haaland's got to do it. Not a single Man United player, by the way.
Valid.
This is the level.
Valid.
It's very valid, but this is the thing. Like a
We
lot
were
of
just
England
sitting,
players,
we were just sitting at 14th in the Premier League. It's where we're living right now.
But yeah, that's that.
So that is the fun time of the year where I get to yell about how stupid this award is because there's no process and it's all made up. So that's great. So congratulations to Lamine Yamal for winning the Ballon d'Or because it's just going to be a better story. So that's just going to be how it's going to play.
He'll win the Young Player of the Year, right? They'll do the young ones, and he'll bring that. He'll win one of those, and just confidently he'll win that. But he's not going to. He's up against the likes of Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe and Haaland, who should be ideally probably top 3.
Well, Haaland should have won it last year, and Messi won it because it was a better story. Clearly, Messi last year was not one of the best, like top 5 players in the world.
No. Yeah,
right. And that's what they bill the Ballon d'Or as. That's what they say. Stupid. Stupid. It's all stupid. I hate it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Stupid. Everything's stupid. Manchester United's 14th in the league. Everything in the world is just I have another great thing actually related to Manchester United as my take it or leave it. So let's dive into that before I start punching my screen over the lack of structure at the Ballon d'Or. Take this or leave it. Jadon Sancho, our boy, will actually end up being one of the better players in the Premier League this year.
Okay. Take it or leave it. Now,
so I'll give you a little time to think about it. I'll preface it with some information. So we all know Sancho had his problems at Manchester United. He is out, thankfully. I think it's a good split for both of us. That should have happened a lot sooner. I was not a fan of how he managed himself professionally after his little riff with Ten Hag. So then he leaves. Good. He's out to whatever this type of club is over at Chelsea, trying to just add multiple players and have multiple rosters playing maybe in multiple different leagues. Who knows what they're cooking up over there. But he ended up playing this weekend, and he played quite well, you will say. And then on top of that, there was an interview, I think it was with Marseca or one of the coaching staff members at Chelsea, and they're saying they're impressed with Sancho because he's been staying late, he's been practicing hard, and been spending extra time to try to get back to the level he needs to be. So with all of this information now in your brain, do you think that he will be one of the better Premier League attackers or players this season? You taking that or leaving it?
So all of a sudden, he's now realized, right, that he needs to stay late and work hard. And there's this whole thing about him now wanting to be the best. I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. I honestly don't. I can't. Yes, he's a very good player. Yes, he probably hasn't reached the potential of Manchester United, of course. And yes, he got the assist for the goal. Amazing, right? I just don't see him hitting those heights anymore. I really don't. I see him maybe doing well. He's a solid player. I like him. I just feel his attitude is him and Ten Hag has never really clicked. I am very annoyed that he even went to Chelsea, by the way. I'm very annoyed about that when it happened. I don't want to see him at Man United, but I didn't want to see him at Chelsea. They just feel like just adding players for the sake of playing players. But do I see him being the best, or one of the best, or having a very good season in the Premier League? Probably. For Chelsea, or like, would he be one of the top 3 players of Chelsea squad? Are you asking, or in the Premier League?
In the Premier League in general, will he end up having a season where people are discussing him as one of the better players of the season?
No, absolutely not. I'm going to leave that. I do think he'll have a better season than Man United because he'll play probably more games, obviously. And I think maybe he'll get like a handful of assists. I don't see anyone writing home about that at all in any capacity. I don't see them going, wow, look at the player that we've signed. What an incredible talent he is. And he's been amazing for Chelsea. And why did Man United ever leave him? Why did they even let him? But I don't see that happening. I see him having like a solid season, mainly because he's got players around him and maybe like a system that probably suits him, but nothing to write home about. I hope he does well because I don't like putting kind of that bad kind of ill feeling on players. So yeah.
I'm actually going to take this one. I think he will end up having a Cole Palmer type of season.
What?
Yeah. Maybe not at that level, but he's going to end up with like 13 goals, 8, 9 assists. I think that's what will happen.
Interesting.
I think I'm stretching a little bit, but the reason I'm saying this is because I remember watching him at Dortmund, and he was a heck of a player. I think he needs to be in the right system with the right team around him. I don't think that's quite Chelsea, but it's closer than when he was at Manchester United. So I do think that he could end up popping off. So I'm gonna take that horse all the way to the non-betting zone, because we're not going to bet anything on this, because I would not put money on him doing this, because I don't think it's actually going to happen that much. But I'm gonna toss it out into the universe and see what happens.
Interesting. That'll be an interesting one to see.
Yeah, who knows? What do you got from your take it or leave it?
Yeah, my take it or leave it. Now I'll try and do something a little bit different here. Right now, another transfer related kind of story here. We know that Ivan Toney moved from Brentford, where was there. Let's be argued the star man in the Premier League. Yeah, exactly. And has moved off to the Saudi, moved to Saudi Arabia essentially for roughly 400k a week is what I'm hearing, which is insane for a player of Ivan Toney, though, right? So I want you to put yourself in. You're a player. You're a football player, right? You play.
I'm taking the money.
So that was it. So take it. So let me for context, right? Like you're going to the Saudi league, you're getting 400,000. You're potentially at your peak in the Premier League, right? There are clubs around you, the likes of the Chelsea, the Man United potentially was knocking on the door. There's players that need an old school striker. There's players that potentially could bring you in, and also potentially question mark whether you get back into the England contention now if you go to the Saudi team and you love playing for your country. What are you saying then? With that in context, like, are you still going? Like, what's happening?
So essentially, if I'm in Ivan Toney's shoes, what decision do I make? I think I'm a little bit different, and I'm going to drop some knowledge here. So money should not be an end goal, to just have money and to buy nice things, all that kind of stuff. It should ultimately be used as a tool for other people's happiness. So when you have a lot of money, you should be utilizing it to, one, of course, make yourself happy, but also be using it to help other people succeed. So that's what I do. I have not anywhere close to the amount of money that any of these professional footballers have. However, I don't make decisions based on obtaining more money. I make decisions based on having cool experiences with awesome, interesting people. So that's how I make decisions. So I know that's going to be different for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to the Saudi League so that they can get a big chunk of money, which hopefully they do good things with. They set their families up for success. Maybe they can invest it in cool soccer programs, things of that nature. However, I would never go to the Saudi League just based on money. I would only do it if it was set up to be some type of cool experience where I'm going to an actual club where I think they're making good decisions, where I could maybe get some type of managerial experience underneath of a good manager while I'm playing there. Or maybe I get to live in some cool place where I get to travel to the different places around Saudi Arabia that are really cool, and I get to do that for a year. So the only reason I would make that decision is to be able to have cooler experiences. So for me, if I was in Ivan Toney's shoes, I would probably not be going to Saudi Arabia, especially because you've seen some players already regret making that decision. First off, then you are at the peak of your powers. You're going to probably be going to another decent leveled Premier League team if you do end up transferring. But however, I'm staying at Brentford because people there love you. You're still making like a good amount of money that you can invest in a smart way to set yourself, your family up for success, where you guys don't have to worry about money anymore after that. You have the crowd, the fans behind you. They love you. You're becoming more of like a hometown hero for a club that you can stay at long term. That also still keeps you in the England hunt, because if you haven't seen Brentford this year, they're still doing well even without Ivan Toney. So for me, I'm staying at the club. I'm much more of that type of person, though, where I would rather be at one club longer term, where I can actually make it a home, have cool experiences, get in line with the fans and then invest in an actual community. So that's the decision I would make. But I think I have a different mindset than a lot of footballers out there.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I think the way you've taken the approach you've taken is probably what perhaps I should have done. And I think I totally agree. I think something I would have done. My only small thing would be is would I ever, I'm Ivan Tony right now, would I ever have the opportunity of earning 400 grand a week ever again? As a footballer, my shelf life is what, 30, 34? Am I ever going to be able to get generational wealth for my kids ever again? Like, I can drop back potentially. I've had a good journey with England. Let's be real. I'm not going to displace Harry Kane. He's going to go to everything. I'm always going to be a backup striker. Watkins is in front of me. I'm probably not going to get into that space, and let's be real, there's probably other strikers ahead of me. England, I've had a good run. I scored a goal. I was very happy. Scored a penalty. I'm in a good place. Probably, that's that. Brentford-wise, we're not going to win anything, but I can still play football and get that money, and I can perhaps do it for a couple of seasons, come back and be okay, and be able to say generationally, but get generational wealth is potentially the angle we may have taken.
But the amount of money that he's going to get based on his contract at Brentford or another team of that quality or even higher quality than Brentford, where he could have gone in maybe the top 5 leagues, versus the $400,000 a week, there's eventually a threshold of money where once you get to a point where you're stable and your investments are making money for you, which the vast majority of footballers in the top echelon of the top 5 leagues are certainly doing if you invest your money smartly, where you won't need to worry about money anymore anyway. So the amount of money, once you get to that threshold, that you're making on top of that, it kind of becomes irrelevant, because once you have that amount of money, what are you going to be doing with it? You're going to have to figure out things to buy, ways to spend it, just to spend it because you have it. So if you end up getting that threshold, I think then you can start making decisions based on, if you're of his level, of his quality, and the money that he's going to be making anyway in the top 5 leagues. I think you can get to a point where you can say, hey, I'm going to be making enough money. I'm smart enough to set it up as investments so that I'm still making money on top of my money while I'm still playing and after my career, that you can be in a more favorable club experience that you would ultimately enjoy more. But it's just so tough because, you have different players looking at different things, thinking of money differently. So, ultimately, they can make a decision whatever they want. I hope they're happy with that, but I would have loved to see him at Brentford and kind of carry them up. And imagine what Brentford could be doing if they had him this season.
Massively. This is exactly what I thought. I thought he can imagine him now back alongside Mbeumo, Wissa as well. I can just feel it. It would really click for Brentford. Brentford are doing something special out there. So, but yeah, that's my take. I'll leave it.
Yeah. Could have been cool. And that's where we will leave it, fam. We are out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Before then, jump on our Instagram account at Nutmegged Podcast. DM us with your listener questions or your take it or leave it submissions. Hopefully you are able to get out on a pitch somewhere before you listen to us again. If you do, just don't get nutmegged. Peace.